My name is Kiera, and I am 23 years old. When my mother screamed those words at me during what I thought was a normal family dinner, I had no idea I was about to uncover the most devastating betrayal in our family history. What started as her attempt to put me in my place ended with me discovering she had been stealing my inheritance for years, manipulating my father's will, and lying to everyone about our family's true financial situation. The revenge I planned changed everything forever. But before we dive into this wild family drama, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and smash that like button if you are ready for a story about family betrayal that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about blood loyalty. Subscribe, because this journey of discovery and sweet revenge is just getting started. And trust me, you will not want to miss how this all unfolds. The whole mess started on a Tuesday evening in March, when I made the mistake of suggesting we hire a financial advisor for the family business. Dad had passed away 6 months earlier, leaving behind his successful construction company, and Mom had been acting strange about money ever since. She would snap at any mention of finances, change the subject when I brought up the business accounts, and suddenly started driving a brand new luxury SUV that she claimed was a gift from a friend. I had been living at home since college graduation, working part-time at a local marketing firm, while helping Mom transition into running Dad's company. The arrangement worked well until that fateful dinner when I casually mentioned that we should probably get professional help managing Dad's assets. "Kiera, you think you know everything, do you not?" Mom's voice had an edge I had never heard before. "You waltz around here with your college degree acting like you understand business better than your old mother." I set down my fork, confused by her sudden hostility. "Mom, I was just suggesting we get some guidance. Dad's company is worth a lot of money, and neither of us has experience managing something this big." That was when she exploded. "If you are so smart, then pay your own bills, get out of my house, and stop living off me like some kind of parasite. You want to give financial advice? Start by supporting yourself." The words hit me like a physical blow. I had been contributing to household expenses from my part-time job, helping with business paperwork, and supporting her emotionally through Dad's death. Her accusation felt completely unfair and out of character for the woman who had raised me. "Mom, where is this coming from? I have been helping with everything since Dad died. I am not trying to take over. I just want to make sure we are making smart decisions." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Smart decisions? You mean like questioning every choice I make, like treating me like I am incompetent? Your father left everything to me, Kiera." Something about the way she emphasized those words made my stomach turn. There was a smugness in her tone, a satisfaction that felt wrong. Dad had always told me that the family business would be mine someday, that he was building something for our future generations. He had even shown me papers years ago, though I admittedly had not paid close attention to the legal details. That night, I called my best friend Maya, sobbing into the phone about the confrontation. "She kicked me out, Maya. My own mother kicked me out because I suggested we get financial help." "That does not sound like your mom at all," Maya said, her voice concerned. "Your parents always talked about how proud they were of your business sense. Remember when your dad used to joke about you taking over the company someday?" Those words stuck with me all night. Dad had always been proud of my analytical mind, my attention to detail. He used to say I had inherited his business instincts but with better people skills. Why would he leave everything exclusively to Mom, without including me in any capacity? The next morning I swallowed my pride and went to Dad's longtime lawyer, Henry Morrison. Mr. Morrison had handled all of Dad's legal affairs for over 20 years, and I hoped he could help me understand what had gone wrong with my relationship with Mom. "Kiera, sweetheart, I am so glad you came to see me, Mr. Morrison said, his weathered face creasing with concern. "I have been wondering how you were handling everything. Losing your father so young, and then dealing with all these estate complications." "Estate complications?" I asked, my heart beginning to race. "Mr. Morrison frowned, pulling out a thick file folder. Your mother did not tell you about the will contest, about the irregularities we discovered in the documentation she submitted to probate court. The room felt like it was spinning. What are you talking about? Mom said. Dad left everything to her. Kiera, your father's original will leaves 60% of the business to you, 30% to your mother, and 10% in a trust for your future children. He updated it just 2 months before his accident to make sure you would have controlling interest when you were ready to take over. I gripped the arms of my chair, struggling to process this information. But Mom said he left everything to her. She has been running the business, making all the decisions. Mr. Morrison's expression grew grave. 3 days after your father's funeral, your mother presented a different will to the court, one dated just a week before his death, that left everything to her. When I questioned the timing and the fact that your father had never mentioned changing his will, she became very defensive and hired her own attorney. Are you saying she forged a will? The words came out as barely a whisper. I am saying there are serious questions about the document's authenticity. The signature looked different from your father's usual style. The witness signatures belonged to people who claimed they never witnessed anything, and the paper and ink were inconsistent with documents from your father's usual legal routine. My mind raced back through the past 6 months. Mom's evasiveness about money, her sudden lifestyle changes, her anger when I suggested financial oversight. The way she had been so quick to cut me out completely when I started asking questions. Mr. Morrison, what can we do about this? He leaned forward, his eyes serious but kind. We can challenge the will in court, but we will need evidence. Financial records, witness testimonies, maybe even handwriting analysis. It will not be easy, and it will definitely destroy your relationship with your mother if we are wrong. I thought about the woman who had raised me, who had taught me to value honesty and integrity above all else. Then I thought about her cruel words the night before, her smugness when she talked about Dad leaving her everything. What if we are right? I asked quietly. Then we will restore your father's true wishes and make sure justice is served. But Kiera, this kind of legal battle can get very ugly very quickly. Are you prepared for that? I took a deep breath, feeling something cold and determined settle in my chest. If my mother had stolen my inheritance and betrayed Dad's memory, she needed to face consequences. If she was innocent, the investigation would prove it. Yes, I said firmly. Let us find out the truth. Walking out of Mr. Morrison's office, I felt like I was seeing the world through completely different eyes. Everything I had believed about my family, my mother, and my father's death had been turned upside down in the span of one conversation. The woman who had raised me to value honesty and integrity might be a thief and a fraud. I spent the rest of that day driving around town trying to process everything I had learned. By evening, I had made a decision that would have seemed impossible. 24 hours earlier, I was going to investigate my own mother. The first step was finding a place to stay. Maya immediately offered her couch, but I knew I needed somewhere more permanent if this legal battle was going to drag on for months. I rented a small studio apartment across town, using most of my savings for the deposit and first month's rent. The irony was not lost on me that Mom's cruel words about paying my own bills were actually pushing me toward independence I might not have chosen otherwise. Next, I needed to document everything. I created a detailed timeline of all the strange behaviors I had noticed since Dad's death. The new car, her defensive attitude about money, the way she had started making expensive purchases without explanation, her insistence on handling all business matters alone even though she had never shown interest in the construction company before. The more I thought about it, the more pieces started falling into place. Dad had always handled the finances, but he had been teaching me about the business for years. He used to joke that Mom was brilliant with people but hopeless with numbers. Your mother could charm clients all day long, he would say, but she balances her checkbook with wishful thinking and prayer. So how had she suddenly become confident enough to run a multi-million-dollar construction company solo? I decided to start with the employees. Dad's company had about 30 workers, most of whom had been with him for years. They knew the family dynamics and they might have noticed changes in how the business was being run. My first stop was Jimmy Castellanos, Dad's longtime foreman and closest friend. Jimmy had worked for Dad since I was in middle school and he had always treated me like a daughter. If anyone would tell me the truth, it would be him. "Kiera, how are you holding up?" Kid Jimmy's weathered face broke into a smile when I showed up at the construction site Thursday morning. "We have all been worried about you." "I am hanging in there, Jimmy. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about something important." "Do you have a few minutes?" His expression grew serious as he led me to the trailer that served as the on-site office. "What is on your mind?" I took a deep breath. "Has my mom been acting strange lately? About money or the business or anything?" Jimmy's face darkened immediately. "Kiera, I am glad you asked. Something has been bothering me for months, but I did not know how to bring it up." "What do you mean? Your dad always said this business would be yours someday. He was so proud of your head for numbers, your ideas about modernizing operations. But ever since he passed, your mother has been making decisions that do not make sense." Jimmy pulled out a folder from the desk drawer. "Look at this. She approved 3 major equipment purchases in the last 2 months. Expensive stuff we do not really need. Then, she gave herself a salary increase that is way higher than what your dad was taking home." I stared at the invoices he showed me. The numbers were staggering. "Jimmy, where is this money coming from? Dad always said the business was profitable but not enough for this kind of spending." "That is what has me worried. She also fired our longtime accountant, Maria Santos. Said she wanted to handle the books herself. Maria had been doing our taxes for 15 years, Kiera. Why would your mom suddenly want to take that over?" A chill ran down my spine. "Did Maria say anything about why she was fired?" "She was pretty upset. Said your mom accused her of asking too many questions about account transfers and expense classifications. Maria tried to explain that it was her job to ask those questions, but your mom just got angry and let her go." I thanked Jimmy and promised to stay in touch, but my mind was already racing ahead to the next step. I needed to talk to Maria Santos. I found Maria's contact information in Dad's old Rolodex and called her that afternoon. She was hesitant to meet at first, clearly worried about professional ethics and legal implications, but when I explained that I was investigating potential fraud, she agreed to see me. "Kiera, I am so sorry about your father," Maria said when we met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. "He was a good man, and he loved you so much. He used to show me pictures from your college graduation at least once a month." "Maria, Jimmy told me Mom fired you. Can you tell me what happened?" Maria looked around nervously before leaning forward. "Your mother asked me to do some things that made me very uncomfortable. She wanted me to reclassify personal expenses as business expenses. She asked me to create invoices for services that were never performed. When I told her I could not do those things, she said I was being difficult and terminated my contract." "What kind of personal expenses?" "The car payments for her new SUV, expensive dinners at restaurants, a vacation to Hawaii she took last month. She wanted all of that to come out of business accounts and be written off as legitimate expenses." My stomach dropped. "A vacation," she told me she was visiting her sister in Ohio. I saw the credit card statements. "Kiera. 5 days at a resort in Maui. First-class flights. She spent almost $15,000 on that trip alone." I thanked Maria for her honesty and drove home in a fog of anger and disbelief. My mother had not just potentially forged Dad's will, she was actively looting his business and lying about how she was spending the money. That evening I called Mr. Morrison and updated him on everything I had learned. "This is bigger than just a contested will," I told him. "She is committing fraud in real time. Kiera, this information is very helpful, but we need to be careful about how we proceed. If your mother realizes you are investigating her, she might try to hide evidence or transfer assets to protect herself." What do you suggest? We need to gather as much documentation as possible before we make any formal accusations. Financial records, witness statements, anything that proves a pattern of deception. Can you get access to business accounts or property records? I thought about Dad's home office, which Mom had barely touched since his death. I think I can get the documentation we need, but I will need to be careful about it. Just remember, Kiara, once we start this process officially, there will be no going back. Your mother will know you are challenging her, and family relationships will be permanently damaged. I thought about the cruel words she had spoken to me, the way she had kicked me out for simply suggesting financial responsibility. I thought about Dad's memory being tarnished by her lies and theft. Mr. Morrison, if she is guilty of what we think she is guilty of, then our relationship is already damaged beyond repair. Let us find the evidence we need. The next phase of my investigation required me to be strategic and patient in ways I never thought I would need to be with my own family. I spent the weekend planning how to gather evidence without alerting Mom to my suspicions. The key was maintaining the appearance that I was simply hurt and staying away rather than actively investigating her. Monday morning, I drove by the house when I knew Mom would be at the construction office. I still had my key, and technically, I had not been permanently banned from retrieving my personal belongings. My hands shook as I unlocked the front door, but I forced myself to move quickly and methodically. Dad's home office was exactly as he had left it 6 months ago. Mom clearly had been avoiding the room, probably because it reminded her too much of him. Or maybe because she was afraid of what evidence might be hidden in his files. I started with his filing cabinet, photographing every document that looked financial or legal in nature. Bank statements, tax returns, insurance policies, business contracts, everything went into my phone's camera roll. The process took nearly 2 hours, but I found several crucial pieces of information. First, I discovered Dad's actual financial situation was much better than Mom had been claiming. The business accounts showed consistent profitability, and there were several savings and investment accounts I had never heard Mom mention. More importantly, I found a copy of Dad's real will dated just 6 weeks before his death that matched exactly what Mr. Morrison had described. But the most shocking discovery was a handwritten letter tucked inside Dad's business ledger. It was addressed to me and dated 3 days before his accident. "My dearest Kiara," it read. "If you are reading this, something has happened to me, and I want you to know how proud I am of the woman you have become. I have updated my will to reflect my wishes that you inherit controlling interest in the business we have built together. Your mother is a wonderful woman, but she has never understood the financial side of our operations, and I worry about her ability to make sound business decisions under emotional stress. Please take care of her, but do not let her convince you to make choices that would jeopardize everything we have worked for. The future of our family depends on responsible stewardship of these assets. I love you more than words can express." Dad, I sat in his chair, tears streaming down my face as I read his words over and over. He had known. Somehow, he had sensed that Mom might not handle his death well, and he had tried to protect both of us by ensuring I would have the authority to keep the business stable. My grief was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I quickly photographed the letter, returned everything to its original position, and slipped out the back door just as I heard Mom's key in the front lock. That afternoon I met with Mr. Morrison to review everything I had found. His expression grew grimmer with each document I showed him. "Kiara, this letter is incredibly helpful, but it also makes your mother's actions even more serious. She did not just forge a will. She deliberately subverted your father's explicit wishes about protecting the family assets. What happens now? Now we start building a formal case. I am going to file a motion to freeze all estate assets until we can complete a thorough investigation. I am also recommending we hire a private investigator to document your mother's recent spending patterns and lifestyle changes. The mention of a private investigator made everything feel suddenly real and terrifying. Is that really necessary, Kiera? If we are going to court with fraud allegations, we need irrefutable evidence. A good defense attorney will try to paint you as a greedy daughter who is angry about not inheriting everything. We need to prove that your mother's behavior fits a pattern of deception and financial misconduct. That evening, I called Maya to update her on everything that had happened. Her response surprised me. Kiera, I have been thinking about this situation and I remembered something weird from your dad's funeral reception. What do you mean? Your mom was talking to that guy. Remember, the one in the expensive suit, who was not with any of the other families. They were having this intense conversation in the corner, and when I walked over to offer them food, Mom looked really flustered and introduced him as a business associate. But the way they were talking seemed really personal. My heart started racing. Maya, can you describe him? Tall, dark hair, probably in his 40s. He had this really confident way of carrying himself like he was used to being in charge. And Kiera, I hate to say this, but the way your mom was looking at him, it did not seem like business. A horrible possibility began forming in my mind. Do you think Mom is seeing someone I do not know? But if she is, that might explain where some of this confidence about running the business is coming from. What if she has someone advising her, or worse, what if someone is manipulating her into making these financial decisions? I spent the next 2 days thinking about Maya's observation. If Mom was in a relationship with someone who was influencing her business decisions, it would explain a lot. Her sudden confidence about financial matters, her expensive purchases, her defensive attitude when I questioned her choices. Wednesday morning, I decided to do some surveillance of my own. I parked across the street from the construction office and waited. Sure enough, around 11 o'clock, a sleek black sedan pulled up and out stepped a man who matched Maya's description perfectly. I watched as he walked into the office like he owned the place. 45 minutes later, he emerged with Mom, and they drove away together in his car. I followed them to an upscale restaurant downtown, where they had what looked like a very intimate lunch. The way Mom touched his arm, laughed at his jokes, and leaned in close during their conversation left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. She was definitely involved with this man, and from their body language it was serious. I took photos with my phone's zoom feature and made note of his license plate number. Then I called the private investigator Mr. Morrison had recommended. Miss Chen, this is Detective Rachel Torres. Mr. Morrison filled me in on your situation. I understand you may have some new information about your mother's activities. I explained what I had witnessed and sent her the photos I had taken. Detective Torres, I think my mother might be in a relationship with someone who is influencing her business decisions. Is that something you can investigate? Absolutely. In fact, romantic manipulation is very common in these types of financial fraud cases. Someone gains the trust of a vulnerable person, like a recent widow, and then convinces them to make increasingly poor financial decisions. Can you get me that license plate number? I gave her all the information I had gathered, and she promised to have a full background report on the mystery man within 48 hours. That night, I lay awake thinking about how completely my understanding of the situation had shifted. A week ago, I thought I was dealing with a grieving mother who had become unreasonably hostile toward me. Now I was uncovering what looked like a conspiracy involving forged legal documents, business fraud, and possible romantic manipulation. The worst part was realizing that if I was right about all of this, then my mother was not just a criminal, she was also a victim. Someone had taken advantage of her grief and loneliness to steal from our family and destroy Dad's legacy. But victim or not, she had made choices that betrayed everything our family stood for. And if I was going to honor Dad's memory and protect his life's work, I could not let those choices go unchallenged. Tomorrow, Detective Torres would give me the information about Mom's mysterious boyfriend. And then finally, I would start putting together a plan to expose the truth and get justice for my father. The battle for my family's integrity was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. Thursday afternoon, Detective Torres called with information that made my blood run cold. The man Mom had been seeing was named Marcus Delacroix, and he had a criminal history that read like a textbook case of financial predation. Kiera, this guy is a professional. He has been convicted twice for elder fraud and romantic manipulation schemes. His pattern is always the same. Target recently widowed women with significant assets, gain their trust through a romantic relationship, then convince them to make financial decisions that ultimately benefit him. I felt sick to my stomach. How does he benefit from what Mom is doing? We ran a trace on some of the business expenses your mother has been approving. 3 of the major equipment purchases were from companies that Marcus either owns or has financial interests in. She has been essentially funneling business money directly into his accounts, probably without even realizing it. The pieces were falling into place with devastating clarity. Marcus had not just stolen Mom's heart. He had turned her into an unwitting accomplice in looting Dad's business. Detective Torres, what do we do now? We set a trap. I have been coordinating with Mr. Morrison, and we think we have a way to catch Marcus in the act while simultaneously proving your mother's deception about the will. But it is going to require you to confront her directly. My hands were shaking as she explained the plan. We would arrange for me to show up at the construction office when Marcus was there, armed with evidence of the forged will and business fraud. The goal was to get them to incriminate themselves while wearing a recording device. Kiera, I need you to understand that this is dangerous. Men like Marcus can become violent when they are cornered, especially if they think their schemes are about to be exposed. Friday morning, I strapped on the tiny recording device and drove to the construction office, with my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Detective Torres and 2 police officers were positioned nearby, ready to intervene if the situation became threatening. I walked into the office without knocking, just like I had done hundreds of times when Dad was alive. Mom and Marcus were sitting close together at Dad's old desk, reviewing what looked like financial documents. Hello, Mom, we need to talk. Mom jumped up, her face flushing with surprise and anger. Kiera! What are you doing here? I told you that you are not welcome at the business anymore. I am here because I know what you did. I pulled out copies of the documents I had found in Dad's office. I know about the forged will, Mom. I know about the money you have been stealing from the business. And I know about him. I pointed at Marcus, who had remained seated but was watching me with cold, calculating eyes. You do not know anything, Mom said, but her voice was shaking. Your father left everything to me. I have every right to run this business however I see fit. Really? Then explain this. I placed Dad's handwritten letter on the desk. Explain why Dad wrote me a letter 3 days before he died saying he was leaving the business to me. Explain why his real will, the one filed with Mr. Morrison 6 weeks before his death, leaves 60% to me. Marcus stood up slowly, and I could see the exact moment he realized his scheme was collapsing. Your daughter is obviously upset about not inheriting what she thinks she deserves. People forge documents all the time to challenge wills. Funny you should mention forgery, I said, pulling out more papers. Because I also know about the 3 equipment purchases you have been convincing my mom to make. Equipment purchased from companies that you own, Marcus. Companies that charge 3 times market rate for machinery we do not even need. Mom's face went white. What are you talking about? Marcus has been helping me make smart business investments. Mom, he has been stealing from us. The man you trust, the man you think cares about you, is a convicted criminal who targets widows exactly like you. That is a lie, Mom shouted, but I could see doubt creeping into her expression. Marcus put his hand on Mom's shoulder, and his touch made my skin crawl. Diana, your daughter is obviously trying to manipulate you. She is angry that you inherited everything, so she is making up stories to try to steal what is rightfully yours. I am not making anything up. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I had taken of their lunch date. I have been documenting everything, Mom. Your secret relationship, the fraudulent business expenses, the forged will. I have witness statements from Jimmy, from Maria, from Mr. Morrison. Mom sank into her chair, and for the first time since Dad died, she looked like the vulnerable woman I remembered. Kiera, I do not understand. Marcus said these investments would secure our future. Our future. I looked at Marcus, who was now edging toward the door. Mom, what exactly has Marcus promised you about your future together? The question hung in the air for a moment, before Marcus made his move. He grabbed a heavy paperweight from the desk and threw it at the window, clearly planning to escape through the back exit. But Detective Torres and the police officers were ready for him. The office door burst open just as Marcus reached for the handle. Marcus Delacroix, you are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand theft. As the officers handcuffed Marcus, he finally dropped his charming facade. You have no idea what you have done, kid. Your mother needed someone to take care of her. Someone to make the hard decisions. What I needed, Mom said quietly, tears streaming down her face, was to grieve my husband and figure out how to honor his wishes, not to be manipulated by a criminal. Detective Torres looked at Mom with a mixture of sternness and compassion. Mrs. Chen, we are going to need you to come to the station to answer some questions about your involvement in these financial irregularities. Am I under arrest too? That depends on how cooperative you are about helping us understand exactly what happened and making restitution for the money that was stolen. Mom looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Shame, regret, and something that might have been relief. Kiera, I am so sorry. I do not know how I let this happen. For the first time in weeks, I saw my real mother instead of the angry, defensive stranger she had become. Mom, we are going to figure this out. But first, you need to tell the police everything. The next 48 hours felt like watching my entire family structure crumble and rebuild simultaneously. Mom spent 6 hours at the police station, providing a detailed statement about how Marcus had manipulated her into making the fraudulent business decisions. The picture that emerged was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Marcus had approached her at Dad's funeral, presenting himself as a business consultant who had worked with Dad years earlier. He claimed Dad had asked him to keep an eye on the family if anything ever happened to him. Mom, overwhelmed by grief and terrified of making mistakes with the business, had been grateful for his apparent expertise and concern. Over the following weeks, Marcus had systematically isolated Mom from Dad's longtime advisors. He convinced her that Mr. Morrison was too old-fashioned for modern business needs. He suggested that Maria was asking too many questions because she was trying to find ways to overcharge for her services. He even discouraged Mom from discussing business matters with me, claiming that my inexperience could lead to costly mistakes. He made me feel like I was finally smart about business, Mom explained to Detective Torres, her voice barely above a whisper. For 30 years, your father handled all the financial decisions. I felt so lost after he died, and Marcus made me believe I could be capable of running things myself. The romantic manipulation had been equally calculated. Marcus positioned himself as the strong, protective figure Mom needed during her vulnerable time. He convinced her that Dad would have wanted her to find happiness again, and that their relationship honored Dad's memory by ensuring Mom was not alone. He said that loving him was the best way to love your father's memory, Mom told me during one of our difficult conversations that week. He made it sound noble instead of what it really was: betrayal. The financial investigation revealed the full scope of the theft. Over 6 months, Marcus had orchestrated the transfer of nearly $400,000 from Dad's business into accounts he controlled. The equipment purchases were just one part of the scheme. He had also convinced Mom to invest in fake real estate developments, spurious consulting contracts, and even a charitable foundation that existed only on paper. Most devastating of all was learning about the forged will. Mom admitted that Marcus had convinced her to have the document created, claiming that Dad's original will contained technical language that could be challenged in court by greedy relatives. He told her that simplifying the will to leave everything directly to her would protect the family from legal complications. I knew it was wrong, Mom confessed to me through tears. But Marcus said it was just correcting a technicality. He said Dad's real intentions were clear, and we were just making sure no one could twist his words. The legal consequences for Mom were complicated. Technically, she had committed fraud by presenting false documents to probate court. However, her cooperation with the investigation, her clear status as a manipulation victim, and her immediate willingness to make restitution all worked in her favor. Mr. File Enema. Morrison negotiated an agreement where Mom would face no criminal charges in exchange for signing over majority control of the business to me as Dad had originally intended. She would retain 30% ownership and a management role, but all major financial decisions would require my approval. Your mother made serious mistakes, Mr. Morrison explained to me, but she was taken advantage of by a professional criminal during the most vulnerable period of her life. The justice system recognizes the difference between a victim who was manipulated into wrongdoing and someone who planned to commit fraud from the beginning. The business recovery process was intensive but manageable. We were able to recover about 60% of the stolen money by seizing Marcus's assets and canceling the fraudulent contracts he had arranged. The equipment purchases were more complicated, but we negotiated to return some of the unnecessary machinery for partial refunds. More challenging was rebuilding the operational structure that Marcus had disrupted. I immediately rehired Maria as our accountant and spent several days with Jimmy reviewing all the personnel and project decisions Mom had made under Marcus's influence. Your mom is not a bad person, Kiera, Jimmy told me as we went through the files together. She just got lost after losing your dad. We all could see she was struggling, but none of us knew how to help. Why did not anyone tell me what was happening? Jimmy looked uncomfortable. Honestly, your mom told us you were being difficult about the inheritance, that you were questioning her authority and trying to take over the business before she was ready. She made it sound like family drama, not criminal activity. I realized that Marcus's manipulation had been even more sophisticated than I had initially understood. He had not just isolated Mom from her advisors, he had turned her into an unwitting accomplice in isolating herself from everyone who might have protected her. The emotional rebuilding was harder than the financial recovery. Mom and I had to navigate the complicated feelings of betrayal, guilt, and grief that Marcus's scheme had created. She was devastated by the realization that her attempt to find love again had nearly destroyed Dad's legacy. I was struggling with anger toward her choices while also feeling protective of her as a fellow victim. Kiera, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, Mom said during one of our weekly meetings with a family counselor. I let a stranger convince me to betray everything your father worked for, and I hurt you in the process. Mom, I am not angry that you wanted to find love again. I am angry that you let someone convince you to cut me out of decisions Dad wanted me to be part of. I was scared, she admitted. Scared that if I gave you control of the business, it would mean admitting that I was not capable of handling things myself. Marcus made me feel capable even when he was actually making all the decisions. The counseling sessions helped us understand how grief and manipulation had created a perfect storm of poor judgment. Mom had not set out to hurt me or dishonor Dad's memory, but her emotional vulnerability had made her susceptible to someone who exploited her fears and insecurities. 3 months after Marcus's arrest, we had stabilized the business and begun the process of rebuilding our relationship. The legal proceedings were ongoing, but Detective Torres was confident that Marcus would face significant prison time for his crimes against our family and the other victims they had identified. Justice is not just about punishment, Detective Torres told me during one of our follow-up meetings. It is about restoration. Your family is getting back what was stolen, and your mother is getting her life back from someone who was controlling her. But even as we worked toward healing, I knew that some changes were permanent. The naive trust I had once had in family loyalty was gone, replaced by a more mature understanding of how even good people can make terrible choices under the right circumstances. 6 months later, I stood in the same office where I had confronted Mom and Marcus, but everything felt completely different. The business was thriving under our new partnership structure. Mom had found her confidence again, focusing on client relations and project management, while I handled the financial oversight that Dad had always intended for me to manage. Marcus had been sentenced to 8 years in prison for multiple counts of fraud and elder abuse. During the trial, we learned that our family was just one of 5 he had targeted over the past 3 years. His conviction brought justice not just for us but for several other families who had been destroyed by his manipulations. "You know what I am proudest of," Mom said as we reviewed the quarterly financial reports together. "We did not just survive this. We built something stronger than what we started with." She was right. The business was more profitable than it had ever been under Dad's management, partly because of new efficiencies I had implemented, but mostly because Mom and I had learned to combine our different strengths effectively. Her natural ability with people and my analytical skills created a partnership that neither of us could have achieved alone. The legal resolution had been satisfying in ways I had not expected. Beyond the financial restitution, there was something powerful about seeing the truth officially recognized. Dad's real will was validated by the court, his intentions were honored, and the public record now reflected the actual story of what had happened to our family. But the personal healing had been more complicated and ultimately more meaningful than any legal victory. Mom and I had to rebuild our relationship from scratch, acknowledging the ways we had both failed each other during the crisis, while also recognizing how external manipulation had exploited our individual vulnerabilities. I spent so many years believing that being strong meant handling everything alone, Mom reflected during one of our conversations. "Your father was so capable that I convinced myself I was not smart enough to understand business matters. When Marcus made me feel intelligent and capable, I was so grateful that I ignored all the warning signs. I made mistakes too," I admitted. "I should have been more involved with the business while Dad was alive. I should have paid attention to the legal details of his estate planning. If I had been more engaged, maybe Marcus would not have been able to manipulate you so easily." The counseling process had helped us understand that healthy family relationships require ongoing communication and mutual respect, not blind trust. We established new systems for making business decisions together, but more importantly, we created space for honest conversations about our fears, doubts, and disagreements. One of the most unexpected outcomes of the whole ordeal was the way it connected me with Dad's memory in a deeper way. Taking on the business responsibilities he had intended for me felt like continuing a conversation we had started years earlier. Every decision I made was informed by the values he had taught me, but filtered through my own judgment and experience. "I think your father would be proud of how you handled this situation," Mr. Morrison told me during our final legal meeting. "You could have just been angry and demanded your inheritance. Instead, you sought justice while also protecting your mother and preserving the business he built." The experience had also taught me valuable lessons about recognizing manipulation and protecting vulnerable people from predatory behavior. I started volunteering with a local organization that provided financial literacy education to recent widows and divorcees, sharing my story as a way to help others recognize the warning signs Marcus had used on our family. Maya often joked that I had become a completely different person through the ordeal, but I think it was more accurate to say that I had become more fully myself. The crisis had forced me to develop skills and confidence I might never have discovered otherwise. I was no longer the uncertain college graduate living in her parents' house. I was a business owner, a protector of my family's legacy, and someone who had faced down serious adversity and emerged stronger. The relationship between Mom and me had evolved into something more honest and equal than it had ever been when I was growing up. We were no longer just mother and daughter. We were business partners, co-survivors of trauma, and 2 women who had learned to respect each other's strengths while acknowledging each other's limitations. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never suggested hiring a financial advisor that night, I told Mom recently. If I had just stayed quiet and let you handle everything. Then Marcus would have eventually stolen everything, she replied without hesitation. And we never would have had the chance to build this partnership. Your willingness to stand up to me even when it was painful saved our family. The financial recovery had exceeded our expectations. Not only had we recouped most of the money Marcus stole, but the business improvements we implemented had increased our annual profits by 30%. Dad's company was now positioned for sustainable growth that would secure our family's financial future for generations. But beyond the money, the experience had given us something invaluable, the knowledge that our family bond was strong enough to survive betrayal, manipulation, and serious mistakes. We had been tested in ways we never could have imagined, and we had chosen to fight for each other rather than against each other. Looking back, I realized that Mom's cruel words that started this whole journey, "If you are so smart, then pay your own bills," had actually been a gift. They forced me to become independent and confident enough to challenge her when she was making destructive choices. They pushed me toward the investigation that ultimately saved our family from complete financial and emotional ruin. The story had taught me that family loyalty does not mean blind acceptance of destructive behavior. Sometimes loving someone means being willing to confront them, even when that confrontation is painful and scary. Sometimes protecting your family means being willing to risk your relationship with them in service of a larger truth. Now, as I finish telling you this story, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and seeking truth in your own family? Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved because you knew they were making destructive choices? The comments section is where we can support each other through these impossible situations, so please share your own experiences with family drama and how you found the courage to do what was right. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help other people find it when they need guidance in their own family crises. Subscribe to this channel because I will keep sharing stories about standing up for yourself and protecting the people you love even when it is terrifying. And please share this video with anyone who might be dealing with family manipulation or financial abuse. Sometimes hearing someone else's story is exactly what we need to find our own courage. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it helps you find strength in whatever family challenges you might be facing. Remember that seeking justice and protecting your loved ones is not betrayal. It is the highest form of family loyalty. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next story.